All right, everybody. So we have a new set of notes today, geometric sequences. First things first, complete your warm-up. Which one of these does not belong and why? All right. There were multiple different answers that you can have here. The key thing with this problem is you decide which one that you think doesn't belong and make sure you have a reason, and you are correct. All right, so look at the sequences below. What do you notice? What's alike? What's different about these? So on the first one here, I'm seeing that we are adding 2, adding 2. So we're adding and we're increasing. Where on the other side, we are multiplying by 2, multiplying by 2. Both of them are going by 2s, but one's adding, one's multiplying. Both of these sequences start with 3. But again, they go by different numbers because the first one's adding, the second one's multiplying. I also see the first one has all odd numbers, the second one has odd and even numbers. Something else to just throw in there. That's a little different about them. All right, so this right here is a geometric sequence. I got 1, 3, 9, 27, 81. I want to find the 7th term of the sequence. So in order to do that, I need to find my pattern. This is very much like when we talked about arithmetic sequences, which was back when we learned that we sometimes have patterns by addition. In this case, we have patterns by multiplication, where to get from one number to another, what are we doing from 1 to get to 3? Multiplying by 3. From 3 to get to 9, multiplying by 3. This right here is our R, our common ratio. So our R is times 3. Every time when you're dealing with a list of numbers here, whenever you're dealing with sequences, geometric sequences in particular, you want to make sure that you know what that common ratio is. So they want us to find the 7th term. Well, how many terms do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need my 6th term and my 7th term. Well, what's my 6th term? It's going to be 81 times 3. 81 times 3 is 243. To get the 7th term, do 243 times 3, and that is 729. So that right there tells me what my 7th term is. So why don't you guys pause the video and try this next one. All right, if you can't figure out what your common ratio is just by looking at it, take the first two numbers and divide them. 18 divided by 6. What is that? That is 3. That tells me my common ratio is 3. And I could have done that with any pair here. Now they want the 6th term. I have the 1st, I have the 2nd, I have the 3rd, I have the 4th. So I need the 5th and the 6th. So 162 times 3 is 486. 486 times 3 is 1,458, and that is my answer. So these sequences, just like arithmetic, they have rules. You want to write down both of these rules. Recursive rule, that is the one where basically I was doing what I was just doing. That's the recursive rule. I have a list of numbers. I know my common ratio. I can take the last number I have and multiply it by my ratio to get to the next number. The recursive rule is just the equation that represents what we just did. The explicit rule, on the other hand, allows us to find any term. Recursive is best for the closest terms, while explicit is good to find any term. With the explicit rule, I need to know what the first term is and what my R is, which is, again, your common ratio, whatever your pattern is. So for these two lists of numbers below, they want us to write the recursive and explicit rule. Just like we talked about on the previous slide, we always want to know what that common ratio is. In other words, our pattern. So what times 6 gives you 12? 2. What times 12 gives you 24? Times 2. That tells me my R is 2. So my recursive rule is then AN equals my common ratio of 2 times A to the N minus 1. Notice the only thing that changed was that 2. The 2 became the R became a 2. Now my explicit rule is going to be A to the N equals my first term, which is 6, times my R, which we said is 2, to the N minus 1. And that's our explicit. Now, not every time will our list of numbers go up. Sometimes they're going to go down. So how do we get our common ratio when it's going down? Well, same thing that we learned before. We can't figure it out by seeing it. We figure it out by dividing the two numbers. 3 divided by 9, that's 1/3. So every time we have to multiply each one of these by 1/3 to get to the next number. So our recursive rule is going to be A to the N equals my R, which is 1/3, A N minus 1. For the explicit, it is A to the N equals the first term of 9 times 1/3 to the N minus 1. All right, so now you guys give it a try with this example here. All right, so these are the two answers that you should have got for your recursive and explicit rule. All right, so sometimes they're going to give us the rule and ask us to come up with the list of numbers. So for instance, they gave us this rule here. They told us they wanted the first 5 terms, and they gave us A1. So A1 equals 2. I need A2, A3, A4, and A5. Well, based on this, I know my R is 6. So then to get from one number to the next, I'm going to do 2 times 6, which gives me 12. 12 times 6, which gives me 72. Then 72 times 6, which gives me 432. 432 times 6, which gives me 2,592. And those are our answers: 2, 12, 72, 432, and 2,592. That's how you get a list of numbers when you're given your recursive rule. Why don't you guys give it a try? All right, guys, that's what you should have got for your list of numbers. Let's go ahead and let's see what we got next. All right, last part is I need to find the 8th term of this sequence. They gave me my explicit rule in this case. Well, they gave me my explicit rule. The first term is 4. My R is 1/2. Using my rule, I can do in my calculator 4 to the 1/2 times 1/2 to the 8 minus 1. The N is just whatever term that they're asking us to find. So in my calculator, what I just wrote down in block there is what I'm going to type in. 4 parentheses 1/2 to the 8 minus 1, which is 1/8. 32. If I had actually done the recursive rule, I would have seen the same thing. My first term is 4. My second term, 4 times 1/2 is 2. Third term, again, times 1/2, still gives me 1. My fourth term times 1/2 gives me 1/2. My fifth term gives me 1/4 times 1/2 again. And I get 1/8. My seventh term times 1/2 again. And I get 1/16. And lastly, times 1/2 again. And I get 1/32, which is the same answer I got here. But notice it took me a little bit longer to do it the recursive way than it did the explicit way. All right, guys, that is it for today. Make sure you go work on your check for understanding. See you guys tomorrow.